Jai.
She made it.
Yes.
She got inspiration.
And I just hold your Achilles. I'm a little, when I step on something like this, my balance gets off.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Hare Krishna, Malati Prabhu. Thank you very much for joining us. What an absolute pleasure to have you here with us. Thank you so much for coming. Okay, so I would like to say a few words so that we can know Malati Prabhu better. Thank you. So, Her Grace Malati Devi Dasi joined ISKCON in San Francisco, USA, and was initiated by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada in early 1967, and became an integral part of the pioneer years of ISKCON. In 1968, along with her 6-week-old daughter, Saraswati, Malati Devi Dasi was part of a team of 6 adults to first establish Krishna consciousness in the UK. This epic adventure resulted in the release of the Radha Krishna Temple album in 1969, produced by Beatle George Harrison. Her Grace often traveled and also cooked for Srila Prabhupada. She then moved to India to assist in establishing ISKCON, and then returned to the UK for some time and then widely preached in European countries. In 1990, she established an all-female ISKCON temple, which was later awarded a large roadside bronze plate by the State of Ohio Historical Society, recognizing the center as the first Vaishnava temple in the state. Her Grace Malati Devi Dasi joined the GBC in 1998, and her responsibilities are focused in the USA. She is also a founding member of the Vaishnavi Ministry and facilitates annual international retreats. Her Grace spends most of her time traveling and preaching, and has also co-authored a book that is a compilation of personal remembrances of female disciples of the movement's founder, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Her Grace Malati Mataji ki
Jai. Hare Krishna. For the past month, I have been speaking in English, a few words, a few sentences, pausing, and then there's a translation. So I was thinking the same thing was going to happen here. And I suddenly realized it's going to be a little strange just speaking English. And a lot of my Krishna conscious life was spent outside of America in non-English speaking countries. So I got in the habit of not being able to always communicate in the local language. So I would like to offer my respectful regards to everyone who is assembled here today, and especially to our hostess and her family. Om Agyantimarandasya Janana Sakalaya Chakshum Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. For those who know Prabhupada's pranams, please say Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Paskata Desatane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Vedanta Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpa Tarubhishcha Kripasindu Bhakti-vricha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Is it possible to turn that off? My eyes are sensitive to light.
This one, right?
Yeah, just that one. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. So just a little bit, she told you a little bit about. So I am based, my home base is in USA, West Virginia. And in West Virginia, there's a beautiful Hare Krishna community, New Vrindavan, you know. And the outstanding feature, there's many outstanding features. It's a large community. And by the way, we have many, many devotees from Latin America, from South America, from Mexico. So Spanish is quite profusely spoken in New Vrindavan, as well as Hindi, Urdu, Bengali, Marathi, so many different. So sometimes I laugh and I say, okay, we're the minorities here. But it's a large community. We've got our own school. And the standout feature is Srila Prabhupada's Palace of Gold. And I meant to bring a little pamphlet that I like to show. But you can also later, you can check it out on your device, Prabhupada's Palace of Gold, and it will show an amazing place. And if you ever have the opportunity to come, please do. We have our own hotel or our guest lodge. We have little cabanas that you can also rent. If you like to camp, you can bring a tent and you can also do that. We've got a goshala, and these cows will never ever be killed. They live happily a very long life because they're not worried about dying. In the outside community, the cows know at a certain point they're going to finish. But our cows are very happy, so they live a longer life, you know. And there's peacocks. That's my personal thing. So I like about 25 peacocks. And deer wandering around. And many, many other type of wildlife creatures, you know, and other kind of birds also. So it's a very attractive place. It's very scenic. And people like to visit there. Busloads of people visit there, actually. So now I've made my little promotion for New Vrindavan, hoping that you might be interested sometime to come. And by the way, if you do, you know, you can contact, there's a place to contact. Let them know in advance you're coming and what arrangements you might need. You can bring, we have people coming from all over, like from Dubai. They come 35, 40 of them come every couple of years. So people come from different places just to see New Vrindavan, but also see all the other wonderful temples that are in North America. But I wanted to speak specifically a little bit about His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. And, sorry about that. So the topic is that exclusive devotion to Srila Prabhupada and his teachings is not fanatical. And I'll explain this a bit. That Srila Prabhupada was empowered by Lord Krishna to do what no other spiritual master had done previously in spreading the message of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Sankirtan movement, worldwide. So, does anybody here not know who, when I speak of Lord Chaitanya, not know who I'm referring to? Actually, Prabhupada spread the Sankirtan Hare Krishna movement starting in 66. But before that, more than 500 years earlier, Lord Chaitanya appeared. So he's actually the Yuga avatar, and the Yuga Dharma is chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And Lord Chaitanya brought that out. I'm having a fight with this thing, unintentionally, I assure you. And Lord Chaitanya is a very interesting personality, because in reality he's not just some avatar, he's actually Krishna himself in the form of a devotee to teach us how to love Krishna. So sometimes people criticize that ISKCON is too focused on Srila Prabhupada. They make that criticism. And they claim that we're narrow-minded, or they say sometimes even we're fanatical. This happens. And while we know and we honor all true spiritual seekers, all saintly Vaishnavas, seekers of the truth, as members of ISKCON, our hearts are connected, heart and soul, to the teachings of Lord Chaitanya as taught to us by Srila Prabhupada. But we're not saying that, if you're not following Prabhupada, it's just for us. This is who we follow. So, and I wanted to speak a little bit how we are bound in our hearts to Srila Prabhupada, how that happens. And we often say Srila Prabhupada, we do say, is the founder and the acharya of the Hare Krishna movement. So acharya means like a great teacher, a person who teaches by example. But we're going to go back a little bit in time to 1838. 1838, September 2nd, a personality who came to be known as Bhaktivedanta Thakur was born. Upon birth, his name was Kedarnath. And by divine guidance, as a seeker of the truth, he came in contact about the message with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, specifically the Chaitanya Chaitamrita, which is a book, many volumes, massive amount, about the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his teachings. And this completely transformed his life. So Kedarnath, who was to become Bhaktivedanta, was not born into a Vaishnava family. On the contrary, his family was worshipping Chandi, Durga. And he came from a wealthy family. His family was living outside in West Bengal in a place called Ilya, and they had a huge compound that was surrounded by a large fence. That was a common thing, you know. So once a year, they would open the doors and invite the public to come to their place for a big festival in worship of Chandi. And they would bring in one buffalo. So we would bring a cow, we will honor the cow. They were gonna that buffalo. So little Kedarnath, as a young boy, he's watching all this going on. And he's just thinking, what is this about? Everybody looks like they're having a good time except the buffalo. He doesn't look like he's having a good time because he knows something's going to happen and it's not going to be in his favor. So every large place, they have, like here you have a concierge. There you have what you call chokidars, you know. So they had their chokidar, especially at night, to guard the compound. The gates would be closed, chokidar would be there all night. And Kedarnath had a little window on the outside wall to his room. So he started at night, he'd go to the window and he'd tap and he'd say, psst, 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 to catch the attention of the chokidar. And he'd start asking this chokidar about life. I mean, he's just a chokidar, so you're not going to expect that the chokidar would have any particular level of education. But the interesting thing was, this chokidar was a Vaishnav. And he started telling Kedarnath, who was just a young kid at that point, about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So life went on. He went from his village to Calcutta to further his education. And interestingly enough, according to the custom of the time, he also got married at a young age. He was 12 years old. The wife was 5. So they didn't live together. It was like he described it, he said it was like a dollhouse marriage. But at a certain point, they were both mature. He had finished his education, and he was searching out for this book, Chaitanya Charitamrita. After all, Mahaprabhu appeared in West Bengal. He's in West Bengal. How difficult could it be to get this book? It proved to be very difficult, to the point of being almost impossible. And at that time, Britain was under the subjugation of, India was under the subjugation of the British. So he was himself at appointed post under the British. And one of his appointments turned out to be in Jagannath Puri. And he was the chief magistrate. He was in charge even of Jagannath Puri Mandir. And one day, there's a knock on the door. And there was an unknown person carrying a manuscript, not in paper, but in leaves. Like that used to be the custom. And he goes, I heard you were looking for this book. Here is the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So that was in the, somewhere like in 1870s. And he started to deeply read and study the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it totally transformed his life. And he understood the divinity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he could see the Vaishnavas were no longer accepted by the respectful public. After the departure of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, initially people tried to keep things going according to his standards, but it became deteriorated. So then the respected public had no appreciation for the Vaishnavas. And the Vaishnavas themselves were not following any respectable standard. So after becoming convinced of the divinity of Mahaprabhu and understanding what his real teachings were, Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur made it his mission to bring forth the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the rightful place in purity. And he was actually praying for assistance, and he was praying to Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna, please send me a son who can help me. So as it turned out, in 1874, February 4th, he got a son, and that son was given the name Bimala Prasad. But he became later known as Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur. And he became the guru of Srila Prabhupada. So both Bhaktivedanta and his father were fearlessly preaching this message of Mahaprabhu. And they were preaching within the context, obviously, of India. But Srila Bhaktivedanta had a vision, a broad vision, and he could understand this message is meant for the world at large. So, sorry about that. And then in 1896, like a hint of the broader mission occurred when Bhaktivedanta sent a small book that he had written Maybe I should sit on my hands. So he sent a small book that he had written called The Life and Precepts of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he sent that book outside of India, to England, to Canada, to Germany. And this book indicated by its presence outside of India that the teachings of Mahaprabhu would also eventually go outside the borders. So that was in 1896. In 1896, on September 1st, Srila Prabhupada, our Srila Prabhupada, took his appearance in a little suburb outside of Calcutta. Actually, he was born underneath a jackfruit tree. So he eventually was initiated by Bhaktisiddhanta, and he joined this pioneering spirit. And he met Bhaktisiddhanta rather unwillingly, you could say. His family was Vaishnav, and his father was always bringing different sadhus or swamis into the house and, feeding them, letting them speak. And he was a modernized person for the time. He was a member of Gandhi's movement, peace, the movement against Britain domination, but in a peaceful manner, unlike other movements against Britain. So theirs was a movement founded on peace. So he was following that doctrine. And he went to Scottish Church College in in Calcutta, still exists. Hare Krishna. And when it came time for his diploma, he declined to take it because he did not want that look like he was supporting the British, So then his friend comes and he goes, come on, we're going to go meet a sadhu. And Prabhupada, whose name at that point was Abai Sharan, because I've met so many sadhus. I'm not impressed. I don't need to meet another sadhu. No, he's different. Please come. I mean, I'm sure everybody here has had an occasion when your best friend says, come on, let's do something. And you just don't want to do it, but it's your best friend and they're pushing you, so you agree, right? I mean, so he finally agreed. It's his best friend, okay. So they go, it was up the stairs. And they get up there, it's a roof. There's a saintly person sitting there. And they make their obeisances. And he didn't even get his head off the floor when he hears this person saying, you're educated young man, take this message to the West and preach. And so, Abai, who was to become Prabhupada, he goes, who's going to listen to us? Nobody's going to listen to us so long as we're under the thumb, subjugated by the British. First, we have to become independent. That could make some sense to some people. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, that is a materialistic concept. We are presenting the pure spiritual message of Mahaprabhu. It has nothing to do with material, mundane politics or anything else. So they had some exchanges. And Abai, Srila Prabhupada, he said he was always kind of the leader among his group of friends. And if there was ever a debate, he would win that debate. He said about this meeting with Bhaktisiddhanta, for the first time I was defeated. And I liked it very much because he was defeated by superior knowledge, spiritual knowledge. So, he left that night, and some of the other friends said, how was it? What was it like? He was thoughtful. He says, this is the right person to carry the message. But he was only 22. He was just married. He had one small kid. So, had to get on with his life a bit. But he was never forgetting this. So there is what you can say a lifetime in preparation. you have your things you have to do to carry on your life, to take care of your family, etc. But he never forgot this, that I must take this message and go to the West. And in preparation for that, he began translating the Bhagavad Gita in English. He began translating Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, in English. And it wasn't just translations, but he was showing the original Sanskrit and then a word-by-word transliteration, so you knew what that word meant. And then he would give the actual translation. And then the stunning achievement would be his purport, his highlighted explanations. And later on, when the books came to America and were published, he had paintings commissioned by his students that showed by painting, examples of the teachings that were being taught in the Gita, in the Bhagavatam. And this was revolutionary, because most people are not really ready to sit down and read straight philosophy. I mean, I just, not to put you on the spot, but is there anybody here that can just sit down for hours and read the philosophy? It's not. But by having the pictures, it was something to catch your attention, and it gave some meaning to what you were reading. So that was one of Srila Prabhupada's wonderful innovations that captured the attention of people around the world. And he was guiding these artists, how Krishna should appear, what the colors of the clothing should be, how his dhoti was tied. It was just amazing the amount of detail that was revealed through these pictures, which he called pictures into the spiritual world. A glimpse into the spiritual world. As such, our Srila Prabhupada is not just another name and picture in a line of the disciplic succession. Does everybody here understand disciplic succession, what I'm referring to? You can, I think on your altar you have the pictures of all the, so disciplic succession was described to us by Srila Prabhupada like this. Let's just say you have a mango tree. The mangoes, well, if when they're ripe, you have to pick them. If you wait for them to overripe, they will fall and splat. So they go up in the tree, they pick the mango, and then there's another person, and they pass that mango on down to the bottom, to the final person. He puts it in a safe box. So the disciplic succession means from one person to the next, the spiritual message is being given. I will speak to you. You will tell that person, and that person will. Very carefully. It's not like, okay, I'll tell you, but you don't like part of the message, so you'll maybe leave a part of it out. And then you think, okay, well, maybe not. You speak exactly as you've heard from the representative of Krishna. And it gets passed down, just like the mango. So it's in perfect condition once it reaches the bottom. So in the same way, Srila Prabhupada was teaching us about the teachings of Lord Krishna from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, it's not that there's other acharyas, there are, but no other acharya brought this perfect message outside of India. The message of Lord Chaitanya, the Sankirtan message, the Yuga Dharma. So you all know about the different yugas, and we're in the Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is a wonderful yuga full of faults, full of quarrel, full of disharmony, dissension, hypocrisy. It's called like the Iron Age. It's not particularly great time to be around. If you pay attention to the news, probably you already know that. You know, here's our country, America, trying to attack one of the South American countries, Venezuela. I mean, does that make you feel comfortable? But this is Kali Yuga, quarrel and dissension, hypocrisy. So Lord Chaitanya brought the Yuga Dharma, the activity that would has the capacity of bringing peace in such a situation. And that's through chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. The Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And to do that, it had to get outside of India if it's going to have any effect in the greater world. And that's what Srila Prabhupada did. He brought the Yuga Dharma, as taught by Lord Chaitanya, outside. In 1965, he got on a boat, not a cruise ship, a freighter, cargo ship, and he sailed from Calcutta Harbor all the way. First stop was in Boston Harbor to go through the formalities, and then to New York, where he disembarked. Now, why did he go on a freighter? Because he had no money, he had no means, but he had the order of his spiritual master, take this message to the West. And when you get money, write books and print them and distribute them. So when he got this first volume of the Bhagavatam ready, he said, now I can go. Because many people came before him to speak, who knows what they were saying, but I met quite a few of them. And what they were saying was just like we call word jugglery. It didn't make sense. But since it didn't make sense, you don't know if what they were saying was, what were they saying? And if you asked a question, they were making less sense in their answer. We would say nonsense. And they didn't have anything of tangible to hand you. So Srila Prabhupada came unknown. Nobody knew he was coming except his sponsor. And his sponsor was just a little unknown Indian gentleman living in Butler, Pennsylvania, who had an American wife that he had met at college. Prabhupada met the father of this person. His name was Gopal Agarwal. And Prabhupada was passing out his little magazines, Back to Godhead, a monthly periodical that he began in 1944. And he was passing them out, and he met one person in Mathura, and he told them he hoped to go to America to bring this message to America. And this person said, oh, my son lives in America. He's sponsored other people. Maybe he can sponsor you. It was a casual conversation. Nothing was finalized. No papers were signed. But a few months later, Prabhupada got a notice saying that his sponsorship had been approved. That meant he had to get a passport. So things moved along, and he got the passport. Now it meant he had to get passage. And there was no question of an airline passage, but he knew about Srimati Sumati Morarji, who was the president of Scindia Steamship Company. She lived in Bombay. And he went to her door of her office and tried to get a visit with her. But his secretary said, what do you want? And Prabhupada told what he wanted. And he's just looking like it. And he told Srimati Morarji, there's this sadhu, he wants to go to America. And she goes, it's just an old man, he'll just die. She had no faith that anything could happen, but Prabhupada was very persistent because he didn't see any other hope on the horizon. And she happened to be a devotee. So he was persistent. And he just sat down on the step of the bill and he sat there. And then the secretary came and he sees he's still sitting there. And he goes, just tell her just to meet me. And he was so persistent, even though she's saying, you're just going to die. What will you eat in America? You're an old man. No, who's going to listen to you? But finally, she gave him a passage, free passage to go. And when he arrived in Boston Harbor, he's looking out and he's, like, first time. And the captain of the ship took him for a little walk around. And he wrote a beautiful poem upon the arrival. And in that poem, he said to Lord Krishna, I don't know why you've brought me here, but I'm a puppet in your hands. So if you like, dear Krishna, you can make me dance. You can make me dance. I don't know what to say to these people, but you can make it happen. So he had put himself in the hands of Krishna. When he got off the boat, so then the boat continued to Brooklyn, where he got off, and there was a person to meet him who gave him a ticket to Butler, Pennsylvania on a bus. Now, I took a bus recently. It was from Buenos Aires to another city, Mar del Plata. This bus was luxurious. It was so nice. It was so comfortable. It had outlets to plug in your devices, had nice, air conditioning. The seat went back. The bus to Butler, Pennsylvania was not like that. But he got there and he met his sponsor. And because the sponsor had a little place, even smaller than this, smaller like this, only one bedroom, they arranged after the first night that he would stay in what they call YMCA, like a boarding place. And they arranged some programs. And Sally was thinking, people are going to see this strange-looking person, so maybe I should get a newspaper article, get something in the newspaper about him, so that people would have some, like, who is this person? Well, here it is. So there's not a lot of interesting things happening in Butler, Pennsylvania at that time, what to speak of now, but they printed an article and it said, a nice picture of Prabhupada, and it said, Swami is coming, to Butler. And they called him the ambassador of Bhakti Yoga ambassador of Bhakti Yoga to the West. That's how they gave him that title, ambassador to Bhakti Yoga to the West. And introduced him that way. But this town had seen better days. It was a former steel mill. And the mills were closing down and the town was deteriorating. So Prabhupada could understand this is not the place to start a movement. He wanted to go back to New York, which he did. And then he arrives in New York. Again, he does not know anybody except one person who is like, he's somewhat of a yogi, but he's not what you call a devotee of Krishna, although he's speaking about Bhagavad Gita. But he doesn't even believe that Krishna is a person, and he doesn't even believe Krishna is God. I liked what you said today when you said that you didn't even believe Krishna was God yourself. Yes. You came here to this country and you didn't even believe Krishna was God, but then Krishna arranged for her to meet the devotees. So, Prabhupada had what you call an uphill battle. And with his determination, with his tenacity, and with this pure, unwavering belief in the words of his spiritual master, he was able to convince people that Krishna is God. And the words of the Bhagavad Gita are not a fairy tale. This is the absolute truth being spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in this way, he was finally able to get what we say in English, a toehold. It means make some mark. But where do you think this movement, the Hare Krishna movement, started? It actually started in a little park under an American elm tree in the Lower East Side of New York, which is famous for receiving all the immigrants. Prabhupada just went to this little park and he sat under this tree with a little dola it wasn't even an Indian drum. It was a little drum that we call in America bongo drum. You can look that up. So he's sitting there under this tree, hitting his little drum, chanting Hare Krishna, all alone. There were no followers. People would come around and kind of look. And there were all kind of people there, people from all kinds of countries, because this was like what the Lower East Side was noted for. And then gradually people started to kind of like, and if he saw anybody showing any interest, he would like, yes, come, sit. He didn't say it, but he'd indicate. So then there became people who started to chant with him. And then he would say a few words. The first recorded kirtan was October 7th in 1966 in that park. So you can say this movement took place under a tree in this little park. But now the winter was coming. And those who were following and those who were coming to listen to him realized, like, the winter is not going to be favorable to coming to the park. It's going to be, New York can get really cold, like snow, ice. So they thought, we need to get a place. And they found a little abandoned storefront. A storefront means a little, when you have a shop, like you have so many little stores here, little shops. But these little these storefronts, the rent was reasonable. It wasn't high rent. So they found an empty storefront at 26 2nd Avenue in New York City, in the Lower East Side. And that is where the first Hare Krishna temple in America began. And Srila Prabhupada started speaking regularly at this little storefront. And then, on the West Coast, there were seekers of the truth. And it so happened that myself and my husband were friends with a couple that had gone from the West Coast to New York. They didn't go to find Krishna, they went to find fame in the musical industry, but instead they met the Swami. And so that's another whole story, but they got initiated, they got married, they got initiated. So they were among the first people. So Mike and Jan from Portland, Oregon became Mukunda and Janaki. And they were the first marriage in ISKCON. And they were coming back to the West Coast to start a little center in San Francisco. Myself and my boyfriend were living on the top of a huge mountain. Why were we living on a mountaintop? Well, it was a government job to look out for fires. It was a huge, I don't know how big these mountains are, but the mountain we were on was 6,000 feet. So whatever that is. but it was a vast forested area full of trees. Your mountains, I don't see so many trees, but this was full of trees. And the idea was there may be a fire, so they had to have a lookout to alert if there was a fire so that the fire could be put out. That's why we're on the mountain. And our friends showed up from New York, and that's when we had our first Krishna Prasad, because Janaki started making. I was like, what is she doing? We had no running water. There was just a stream. That was the running water, the stream. If you wanted to take a bath, you go to the stream, you get the water, you go inside. We had a wood stove. You heat up your water, you go outside, because there was no bathroom in the house. Everything was done outdoors. You just, take your bath. Whatever you had to do, you did it outside. And the cooking was on this wood stove. So she was making some kind of dough, rolling it out, putting it on the top of the stove and then on the fire, and it was puffing up. This was our first Krishna Prasad. Now, we were already a little surprised that they got married, because in these days, the hippie lifestyle, I call the hippie sampradaya, we didn't believe so much in marriage. We thought, that wasn't necessary. So it was kind of shocking that, wow, they got married. And then they told us they had new names. So that was also like, well, what's next? And so Mike became Mukunda, Jan became Janaki, and they told us that they were now not vegetarian. And that was cool. But in those days in America, if you were vegetarian, it was considered very suspect. Maybe you were also a communist. It wasn't, it was not something that was widely accepted at that point. Now it's totally normal. But then, not so much. And then during the prasadam, Mukunda said, after dinner, I want to show you something. So after dinner, what did he show us was do you have the first volume of the Bhagavatam here?
In Spanish.
That's okay. I just wanted to see the cover. I should have asked you earlier. So he brings out a book. Does it have the cover on it? No, it doesn't have the cover. Oh, you have those beautiful editions. Okay. All right. No, she has it, but the first edition had a cover. And on that cover, it showed something that was very curious at the time, because we didn't have books from India at that time. So there was this blue-skinned guy with 4 arms lying on a snake that had a big hood covering this person. So blue skin, 4 arms, lying on a snake in some kind of you don't know what he was in. He's floating in the sky. And out of his navel was coming a flower. And on the top of this flower was another fellow, but that fellow had 4 heads. And I was just like, wow, what is this? Now, I want to say one thing about the hippies. We were really searchers. We were looking for truth. Now, the idea of God, we weren't too sure. We didn't know. Did God exist? We don't know. Maybe you're God, maybe. That was the thing. Well, everybody's God. Nobody's God. There is no God. And then the climax was the Time magazine. You know Time magazine? What was it? They had a cover and it said, God is dead. So it was a very confusing point. For myself, as a young person, very young, like this, I knew I wasn't the body. But I didn't know, what was I? I even took myself to church to find out, and I couldn't get an answer. So now here is this amazing book, and I'm looking, what is this? Who's that person? And Mukunda said, this is God. The Christians say man is made in the image of God. So here, but I was thinking, he can't just be like us, otherwise what's the meaning of God? So suddenly, here's this person, 4 arms, here's another guy, 4 hands, and Mukunda saying, this is God. And I immediately accepted that. And I started to open the book, and then I see for the first time this beautiful Sanskrit language. And then you see the transliteration, you see the actual translation, and then you see this purport, Prabhupada's highlight. And I'm turning the pages, and it says, I kept seeing this one phrase, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And this was so amazing. And I felt for the first time, I want to meet the person who wrote this book. And of course, that was Prabhupada. I mean, the actual author, Veda Vyas, but Prabhupada was bringing it to us. So for the first time, I wanted to meet a superior personality. So then Mukunda said, we're on our way to San Francisco. We're going to start a temple. And I'm like, what's a temple? And he was explaining, well, a temple is a storefront painted white, because that's the first thing we did when we'd get a little place. And we said, okay, we'll come, but we're up on this mountain. We have a contract. And the contract says first snow, because once it snows, there's no danger of fire. The next morning, I opened the door to go outside to, call of nature, and there was snow. There was snow on the ground. And I could see the footprint of a mountain lion right in front of our doorstep. So we had this little way of contacting the rangers at the station down below. And I said, okay, we're leaving. God, what are you talking about? We're leaving. What are you talking about? It snowed. Our contract says first snow. It snowed. And it's raining. Well, it didn't snow down here. And I'm looking, it says first snow. Well, it snowed up here. And he goes, well, it's not going to stay. I mean, I didn't know much about snowfall in those days. So I'm like, well, it doesn't say it has to stay. I was like, we're ready to go. It's interesting because like I told you, I live in New Vrindavan. It's in the hills. And I'm a little bit on a hill up from the temple. Not much, but it's a hill. Sometimes it'll rain at my cabin. Sometimes it'll snow, but down at the temple, nothing's happening. Because I didn't understand that at the higher elevation, naturally, the snow would come first. So we just said, we're leaving. And we packed up, and I had borrowed a couple of horses, borrowed a couple of chickens, we had a dog, we had a cat. So I had to return the horses to the rancher that I borrowed them from. And we got ready to leave. And then we kept the dog, we kept the cat, and we packed up everything in our station wagon, and along with Mike and Janaki, and by the way, Joan was there. Joan was the sister of Janaki. And later on, Joan became initiated and became Jamuna, who you all know from Govindam Mari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Mari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So she is the head chanter. And anyways, we went to San Francisco. And Joan, we got initiated. So I was Melanie, my boyfriend was Sam, so Malati, Shamsunder, 2 other couples. Harvey Cohen became Hari Das, and his friend Hope became Harsharani. Jamuna was initiated a little later. So that was kind of the beginning of the Hare Krishna movement that spread all over the world by the grace of Srila Prabhupada. We went to the UK, to London, 6 of us, Janaki and Mukunda, myself, Shamsundar, and Joan, who became Jamuna, and Guru Das, her husband, and my little baby Saraswati. So we left America, we went to the UK. We had a mission, was to meet the Beatles. So the Beatles was this very famous rock and roll group. Why would we want to meet the Beatles? Are we interested in rock and roll? No. But in the Bhagavad Gita it says, whatever the famous person does, the common man will follow. The most famous people in the world at that point in time were the Beatles. All over the world they were known. So our game plan, our strategic plan was get those Beatles to chant Hare Krishna and the whole world would chant. And it happened by Krishna's grace, rather long story, but that was why we wanted to meet the Beatles, because we wanted to expose the world to the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, the Yuga Dharma. So Srila Prabhupada accomplished what no other previous Acharya had done by getting the whole world to chant Hare Krishna, And when he left the planet, there was one continent that still had not received the Maha Mantra. So on November of 2016, which was the 50th anniversary of ISKCON, a group of people went to this place. I can tell you the name of the place. Need my glasses to see. So this place happened to include Argentina. So how is that? Because already in South America, but this place was what's the name of it? It's like at the end of Argentina, and it's like Antarctica, right? So it has a connection with Argentina, also with Chile and other countries, but it still haven't received the mercy of Prabhupada's books and the holy name. So these devotees went for the 50th anniversary. They brought the books. They brought a Murti of Prabhupada. They performed an arti to Prabhupada on the ship, and then they gave the books to the people at that station. It's like some kind of a scientific station, and they brought the books to the Antarctic. So every continent in the world, by the mercy of Prabhupada, has received the holy name, received his books, and received the message and mercy of Mahaprabhu. So thank you very much for sitting and somehow or other paying attention, I hope. And I hope that, the thing is, Srila Prabhupada, as I said, he's just not another picture in the disciplic succession. He did something significant by spreading the Yuga Dharma, by printing these books and sending them out at the order of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. If you ever get money, print books. And these books are, at this point in time, almost 80 different languages, the Bhagavad Gita. Just recently, it showed a picture of Mr. Modi, from India, handing a Bhagavad Gita to Mr. Putin from Russia, and it was the Russian Bhagavad Gita by, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. Recently, Lionel Messi, you see a picture with Guru Prasad Swami, he also got the Gita. So these books are like little time bombs. people, we give them out, and maybe or maybe not, they won't be immediately read. They might not even get read by the person who received them, but they'll take them home, put them on the bookshelf, and one day somebody picks them up and the light goes off. This is what I've been needing. This is a message I need to hear. So in his sincere manner to please his Guru, Srila Prabhupada successfully instituted the Yuga Dharma all over the world and brought the message through his books. So I, hope that you can appreciate that, can appreciate Srila Prabhupada, and can also, in your own way, assist in spreading this message in a world that desperately needs a hopeful message. Hare Krishna. I am so sorry that I was hanging this microphone. If you have any questions or any comments,
It's a basic question, not very spiritual. Just curious. The temple, the Hare Krishna temple in San Francisco, is the one in Berkeley?
Yeah, so here's what happened. Lord Jagannath appeared in San Francisco in 60. I was initiated in January 67. Lord Jagannath, I had something to do with that. So he was found, he was carved, he was installed in San Francisco on Easter of 67. That was March 24th. First Rath Yatra in the Western world was July of 1967 in San Francisco. And then I left, myself and the others left San Francisco in 68, in late August. And I don't know what year it was that things in San Francisco, that little place closed. They had other temples after that were a little bigger, but things closed down, and Lord Jagannath was taken to Berkeley, where they had found a larger place. Of course, in my heart, San Francisco is always New Jagannath Puri, but now the original Jagannaths that were carved by Shyam Sundar, they reside in Berkeley.
And where in San Francisco was it? Where in San Francisco?
They're no longer in San Francisco, they're in Berkeley.
Right. No, I've been to the Berkeley temple.
Okay, so
it's beautiful.
Those are the original, the Adi Jagannaths of the Hare Krishna movement. So the original place was on Frederick Street. It was near the panhandle of Golden Gate Park. But if you go there now, you're going to see a laundromat. Yeah. The Shyam Sundar actually carved 4 sets of Jagannath. So the first, San Francisco, the second was New York, the third was LA, and the 4th was London. Out of those 4, the original sets in Berkeley and in London are the original. The ones in LA and the ones in New York were replaced because of the wood deteriorated. So they were carved again. But if you go to London, to Soho Street, you see Radha Landanishwara, the first large marble Radha Krishna deities worshipped in ISKCON, and you'll also see the original Jagannath deities carved by Shyam Sundar.
That's also beautiful.
I have heard that when you go to London and it's Janmashtami, the police has an emergency case because there's a lot of cars going to the Bhaktivedanta Manor. And this Bhaktivedanta Manor, a little outside of London, is one of the most famous temples in the Western world. And I knew that as ISKCON got this big property, it's not just a place, it's a big property. It was donated by George.
The property was donated by George Harrison.
George Harrison.
Yes.
How how it was possible? How you convinced that?
Because our little place, Sevenbury Place, the original temple where Radhalanda and Ishwara were installed, where Jagannath was installed, became too small. And George was very friendly. He was very favorable, and he could see it's too small. And one day he said, his words, "We need a larger place." But it didn't mean we're going to shut that down. It just mean we need a larger place. You had to expand. And so Dhananjaya Prabhu was the one who founded Bhaktivedanta Manor. Played the record so much that it wore out. So he wanted to find, he heard there were some people in London, and he wanted to find these people. That was us, and he wanted to find them, but he didn't know where to find us. And then somehow, anyway, and he said, "Hey man, where have you been? I've been looking for you." And he invited us, the devotees, for dinner at his place the following Friday. So, that's all Krishna. It wasn't us. We were just the little puppets. Like Prabhupada said, I'm just a puppet in your hand, Krishna. Make me dance if you like, make me dance. And in the same way, we were just Prabhupada's puppets on his behalf. We weren't, like, as I said, looking for fame. We weren't impressed by the fame. We wanted to do something for Prabhupada. And we wanted to get that mantra out there. So it was George's idea to make the record. And because he was famous and everybody knew the Beatles, and because they knew he was behind it, naturally it was becoming successful.
Hare Krishna. I have a question, and I need if you have an advice to us, for all of us, but especially for me, that I have a lazy mind. And my lazy mind sometimes make me chant just 8 rounds a day. And the day have 24 hours. So I want to know if you have an advice. What is the best way to complete the 16 rounds?
Prabhupada gave an example. He said that, so like for those who are initiated devotees, we have to chant 16 rounds on our japamala. That means that each japamala is 108 beads. On each bead you chant the full Hare Krishna Mahamantra all the way around on 108 beads, and you do that 16 times. So Prabhupada suggested you take what we now call time management, do 4 rounds, do 4 rounds, do 4 rounds, do 4 rounds. Like in the morning, the afternoon, late afternoon, it finished 4 rounds at a time. It's not so difficult. Some people feel intimidated. Like myself, I want to get it all, sit down and chant 16 rounds when I can do that at one shot. But some people find it easier to break it down, so you can try that. Hare Krishna. It's not, and for people who are new, if you can do 16 rounds, fantastic. Otherwise, just pick a number that you can do steadily. It's good to say 2 rounds because forward and back, and do it for a while. Try it out. Prabhupada said, there's no tax on this, so it's free. You can try it, and see what the benefit is,
Are there any rules and regulations for one to wear the kanti mala?
There's not any rules and regulations per se, but I was explaining today that if you're wearing a kanti mala, it should only be tulsi. And it shouldn't have other beads on it, then it becomes a necklace. No problem with the necklace, but then it's not kanti mala. And most importantly, not to hang anything on your tulsi, on your kanti mala. That's important. Don't take service from tulsi.
But anybody can wear it, right?
Anybody can wear. It's good if you're, anyway, anybody can wear. Tulsi is very kind. But, we like to respect tulsi. So, if you can avoid eating meat, that's good. Meat, fish, eggs, garlic, onion, that's good if you can do that. no drinking, I mean, alcohol or smoking, these kind of things, but still, you can wear.
I just remember that we had a group of boys and young people in the early 2000s here in Chile, and they loved this band Shelter from US, and other bands from here, from Latin America, Sudarshan, for example, from Argentina, and they, after the concerts that they have, they just go to the temple because there are some devotees there. They'll come to the temple with free food, free food in Friday night. So sometimes, like 30 of them, they come and they get from the gift shop this Kantimala, and we just run down because they see these rock bands wearing it, like Roy Campo Prabhu and Raghunath Prabhu. So okay, we want. So they get the whole gift shop. But anyone like 30, that's 15 years old, 18 years old, wearing this Tulsi Mala. They don't know.
But you can say to them, "Yeah, this is great," and can you just try to chant Hare Krishna? You tell them like that, and to them it's just a fun thing to do. But that's the beginning.
Yeah. And they were what is the name? Straight edge. So they not smoking, not eating meat.
Well, the hardcore, you're talking about the punk rockers.
Yeah.
And they were like hardcore.
Yes.
So like they actually didn't smoke, drink, they didn't take alcohol, meat, fish. They were really like hardcore following, but they were punk rockers. Like they were way out there. The way they dressed, I was friends with Harley and these people from 108, so, anyways, yeah, but it was a good thing what they did.
Yeah.
So I think kids are getting like, okay, I've had enough of this. Prabhupada would say, kids, like even we have a hard time with hardcore philosophy. What to speak of kids? Did you have a question?
Yes, thank you so much for very kind upanyasam for us. So I have a question. Since you are the earlier founder of ISKCON, once I was listening the speech of Steve Jobs. He said he would walk 7 miles every Sunday to have a very good vegetarian meal. So while listening how the ISKCON operates, do you have anything specific? Okay, we should give the free food so that people would come and we can spread the Prabhupada's words.
What is the question though?
Yes, okay.
I got the first part.
Yeah, okay. While you are designing how ISKCON should operate at the early days, like kirtan, food or something, do you have any idea that giving the free food would attract the people to the temple so that you can spread the Prabhupada's words?
Of course, that was understood, We used to always keep a big jar of gulab jamans. And we would call them ISKCON bullets. Nowadays, we would not say that because people would freak out. Bullets, But those days it wasn't so radical. So, ISKCON bullets, y'all know what gulab jamans are, right? Yeah.
Rahul, sorry. If you could tell us your favorite pastime with Prabhupada.
I don't have a favorite pastime with Prabhupada. I don't cut him up. Anything with Prabhupada for me is my favorite. Just like people ask me, where's my favorite country? Where I am is my favorite country. Right now it happens to be Chile. But I just don't want to what your time frame may be. I was told 8 o'clock, 5 minutes, and